Welcome to the Table Talk podcast, where we get real, meeting with industry professionals and experts in the chiropractic world, talking about the newest and latest, how to scale your practice, the struggles that we all face in practice, and how you can take your practice to the next level. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Table Talk podcast. I am here with Dr. Jason Abaza, and we have known each other, Doc, for longer than I truly like to admit that I've been out in practice, because we actually met in school.
I'm getting old, man.
We are getting old. And so I wanted to get you on this podcast because some of the conversations that you and I have had over the past month or so, I think are things that chiropractors really need to hear, especially in 2025 and going into the future, because it's the things that are so important to our profession. Doc, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Table Talk. And, let's dive in. Tell everybody, a little bit about yourself, about your practice, about your life, and kind of where you are.
Yeah, man. Well, number one, thank you for having me on. Honored to be on here. I appreciate our relationship. And yeah, for sure, we are getting old, dude. It has been a long time since we were just little kids in school, and life has changed a lot since then. But anyhow, my name is Dr. Jason Abaza. Most people just call me Dr. J. I practice over in New Jersey. I was born and raised in New Jersey. Went to school at Life University in Marietta. That is where, like many chiropractors experience, I met my wife. She's a chiropractor as well. And then we moved back to New Jersey in 2017, I believe, to open up a chiropractic practice. And it has been a wild ride. And the way we have done things has changed drastically through the years. And I always feel that I'm able to just approach things a little bit different in that I just like to be my authentic self, man. And I'm a big believer in being humble with your shortcomings. And I've experienced a significant amount of that in practice. And I feel that one of my greatest gifts that I can impart upon maybe some listeners today, or just friends, colleagues that I've had or known throughout the years, is just sharing where I screwed up so that they don't have to experience that pain as well. You know this, brother, when we were a part of some of these larger coaching groups, you oftentimes only hear the big success stories. So you just keep kind of gravitating towards these groups and sometimes following along like a sheep, not really knowing the struggles people are experiencing behind the scenes. So I was like, no, you know what? Like, even if it does make me look bad or less successful, I'm going to share what I'm struggling with so that the person behind me doesn't have to go through that as well.
And I think that is so important for this profession. And I hear this, especially, we meet with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of chiropractors every single year. And the thing that I almost didn't realize is that the circle that I sort of ran in was a circle of, really successful chiropractors. And so I thought that was just normal. And there's a lot of people that are hurting. They haven't quite figured it out. And I think that a lot of times it comes down to just the very, very little things that you do or don't do in your practice that are either going to lead you towards success or towards, I don't want to say failure, but maybe not the success that you wanted. And I think that, that's a really, really powerful message just right there. And that there are a lot of docs out there that are struggling. And we're seeing that a lot, especially, even right now.
For a lot of different reasons, bro. And sometimes it is the little thing. Sometimes it's one huge thing or culmination of things. It's kind of like the profession a little bit is like social media, right? Like when people post pictures of their cars or their family and their house, and we are portrayed this image of like this beautiful life. And maybe it is beautiful, but there's always something going on behind the scenes. And for me in chiropractic school, I joined, I'm not going to mention their name because I still think highly of them, and we talked about this too. Not every group can be everything to every person. We were part of a large mentorship group. And I remember being in school, I was dating this girl. She invited me to a seminar. I sit down in the seminar. These four guys start speaking who were well-spoken, who had beautiful wives, thriving, successful practices, cool clothing. And man, I was a young student at the time. I think I was accepted into the DC program at like 19, so I was one of the younger guys. Obviously, for a person in my position, I'm going to look up to that and admire that and say, whoa, I want to be like these guys. I'm going to do everything I can to be like these guys. And it's not that they were bad people or taught the wrong things. It's just that I kind of viewed them as superheroes who could teach everything. And there were missing pieces. And because of my unwillingness to go and learn from somewhere else or find those extra pieces amongst other resources, man, it hurt me in practice big time.
And I think that some of that goes back to like that truly authentic version of who you are. And that, it's one of those things where what you aspire to, maybe that was the true authentic person. And for them, that was who they were. Right.
That's,
But that doesn't necessarily mean that's who you are. And that's okay. Right. That's where
yeah,
God has given us the freedom and the free will to be the person that we were meant to be and serve the way that we're meant to serve. And so I totally agree with you that there's seasons of life where it's like certain people will come into it and like they pour into you and they connect with you and they teach you things that you need to learn. But for you to truly become who you need to be, you have to search out those other sort of mentors, those other sort of people who are going to lead you, sort of in your journey and in the development of who you are. And I think that that's so important because like I can take away and look at some of the things that happen in my practice and know that like I learned this from this person, and I learned this from this person, and I learned this from this group, and I learned this from this group. And like all of those things, it was like, I'm going to take this here, but I'm going to keep that off and take this here and keep that off. And by doing that, like that's how I was able to develop like my system, right? Like who I was, how I practiced. And it was a lot of fun because I was able to do that.
you're wise beyond your years, man. And that's why you've seen so much of the success that you've seen. And going back, I think those guys did preach to us all the time. Don't be like us. Be the authentic version of yourself. I think I wanted what they had achieved more than anything. But I think a great point to mention within this is that even throughout life and throughout practice, your identity and that authentic version of yourself, it can change. You're allowed to change it. It's okay if you no longer resonate with a group of friends that you graduated with or some mentorship group that you were a part of. I've kind of just come to this point in my life where I truly don't give a crap about what other people think of me. And it's very liberating to say, hey, I'm going to practice this way. I'm going to charge this way. I'm going to employ these types of people. When you start kind of just singing your own tune and doing your own thing, it feels great. It feels good on the inside to be who you truly are in that moment. It also feels really good to not care about what other people think or say of you.
100%. And I think that's one of the things that sometimes happens, especially when you see, I can think back to groups. It's like, well, I was seeing 1,000 a week and in 6 months, or I was collecting $1 million at this part and I was doing this. And I saw it, or I'm going on these vacations. Whereas for me, like all of those things are fine and dandy if that's what your vision of
Yeah.
success is. And so my vision of success was always like, number one, I wanted to be able to fulfill what I feel is God's purpose in my life in helping people to heal naturally and empowering and educating them. I wanted to be able to have an amazing relationship with my wife, which I have, right? We're 13 years into our marriage and it's never been better than it is today. I wanted to have a family and I wanted to be able to do the things that I enjoy. If I'm honest with you, I don't like to travel. Like like if I never went on a vacation other than going to our family cabin every year, like I'd be totally cool with that. And my wife, like she gives me a hard time about this, but that's just who I am. Like I'd way rather like jump on a bike and go for a ride with my kids than go to Italy and go see all the sights there. It's just kind of who I am. And I think that I had to learn that about myself though.
Being your authentic version of yourself, right? And it can be kind of scary, especially when you're with a large group, like chiropractic bubble, right? That's a very real thing in school.
Yes.
And sometimes we're, again, part of these groups, or we graduate and we stay associated with these people. Maybe we feel judged, maybe we compare. I'm a big believer that God rewards authenticity, God rewards you taking risk, going and doing your own thing. It's your own journey. That's really what it comes down to. And you don't want to look back. You just I would hate to be in the position where I look back and I'm like 70 or 80 years old and I'm like, I wonder if I had ever branched out to do that thing that I wanted to do, or adjust this way, or bring this modality in. I wonder if I would have done that, how things would have changed for me. Dude, it was scary for me. It's crazy. I mean, again, I'm younger than yourself, but it was just a lot of internal conversation at that time of like, man, how will they view me when I step away? How will my friends, how will my colleagues view me when I start doing these different things, which I'm sure we'll talk about today's conversation. But man, I feel like every time I've taken big risk or done something that's made me extremely uncomfortable, the reward is far greater than I could have ever imagined it would be.
Yeah, and I mean, my biggest thing is I've never wanted to make decisions solely based on money. That's something that's kind of a core value for me, that like money is a product of value, right? It's an energy, and that energy is it comes back to you in how you put good into the world, right? And
Mhm.
so by doing things to help, right? And so, my mission since I've sold the practice is I always looked at this and said I could serve chiropractic in my four walls. I could, I still sit on our state board, right? I'm still the vice president of our state association. And I can help those chiropractors in that way politically and by serving a bigger purpose. But I stepped into this my position at Elevate to help other chiropractors to kind of shake them and say, look, there are things that you need to do in how you are growing your practice and marketing your practice and bringing patients in the doors that I could be able to serve hundreds of communities with those same things and be able to look at a doc and with 100% certainty look at them and say, your system for new patients is broken. And I understand that this is how you've done it, but these are the results that you've gotten so far. And this is what we need to do in order to fix that. And,
Yep.
and sometimes, my team they get friction when they do this, but I get like, yep, you're right. And so that's where sometimes it's almost like I'm playing coach with a lot of practices, because where my heart is I want to help you grow your practice so you can help these people heal. And I think that something that's super important. And I think that really translates into some of the things that you're doing now, and the journey that you're on as well.
100%, man. I mean, I deal with the same exact thing that you just dealt with. I think the way we communicate is very important as humans, not just as doctors or clinic owners or company owners or marketers. Just the way we communicate to people matters. And I think one of the blessings that we have is to have gone through these processes, these struggles, these businesses ourselves, where there's a little bit more validity when we say, hey, uh, I think you should do it this way because I know the result and I've been in your same spot. For me, I'm just a little bit unique with it. I think I relate really good to the docs who are struggling financially from a business perspective. And 9 times out of 10, they are phenomenal docs, phenomenal chiropractors. Being a chiropractor, man, it's kind of a wicked thing. I'm not sure I'm not sure if that's the right word, but like you think about it in school, you learn how to be a good doctor, but you're not really learning the business.
Yes.
And then your life evolves, you age, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're a parent, you're a husband or wife, you're an entrepreneur, you're a doctor taking care of 100 patients, you're a marketer, you're a community leader. It is a lot to juggle. So I just think having mentorship for people, having community, even stuff like today, where you and I are talking, it's extremely helpful. For me, my personal struggle to be intimate and share is that my wife and I opened up a beautiful facility from day one. We did everything right in terms of getting patients in the door before we opened. Hundreds of screenings, health talks, getting paid appointments on the books, a ribbon cutting with, I think, 120 people. My wife is huge into interior design. Our space looks beautiful. Everybody loves it. Amazing systems, really good at teaching about chiropractic, good adjusters as well. So you would think like that's the equation for success. And I'll be transparent and share, dude, I didn't know anything about pricing structures.
Yeah.
And I was just taking pricing structures from some doctor in Alabama and how he does plans, and I'm in North Jersey.
Right.
And my business suffered so much because of it. And it's a really crazy thing to how we decided to start elevating our prices and ultimately saved our business. I went to bring my dog to a vet appointment, and this was a holistic vet. And at the end of the visit, he asks, "Do you want me to adjust your dog?" And I'm like, "That's interesting. You do adjustments here?" He's like, "It's our most popular service." So he grabs an activator and within maybe 10 seconds or so, clicks down every vertebrae on my dog's back. And I'm like, we're talking about chiropractic a little bit. I check out and I'm like, "That's interesting. I don't know if that really did anything, but we'll see." And I look at the bill and he charged $85 for the adjustment. And I went back home and I was like, "Here's what just happened at the vet." And the adjustment was 85. And it was such a hard-hitting moment for me, man, because at the time we were charging $40 for an adjustment. And I'm like, first of all, I know my adjustment is better than what he just
Yeah.
did. There's no other way to put it.
Yes.
But it was like such a smack in the face, man. I was like, that was actually the moment that made us decide to raise our prices to $95 a visit. And just that one simple little tweak. And it was uncomfortable, right? Because all we had ever known for what, a year and a half, 2 years was charge $40. And we start charging 95 and it didn't change the close rate. And in that moment, it saved our business. We had overcome many struggles, but it's one of the things that I preach even within my coaching groups. It's like, the number is just a number. It's just value. I'm a big believer in building value. And in absence of value, all that's left to consider is cost.
Yep.
You know, I coach red light offices, scale their programs, have a high close rate, and help them free up their time. We have a new client that just joined the group recently, and we're setting him up and I'm showing him what his prices are going to be. And he calls me a little bit frantic, which I didn't expect out of this guy. And he's like, "I'm just curious, how are we going to charge $150 for this session? Because there's a place right down the road that does cryo and red light together. Unlimited sessions per month is like $45, $50," he mentioned. And even for him who's experienced in practice, we had to go through this idea that our job is to just build the value. And I don't think it's a wise strategy for a business to race to the bottom. To see Joe Schmo down the road charging 20, so we should be at 15 to beat him. I think it's a dangerous place to be. And I mention this because more and more when I speak to doctors and I see what they're charging, I'm like, you could charge more. You can charge more. You can do it. But they know they can, but it's a very big psychological hurdle for them.
Yeah. I mean, I had a sort of epiphany sort of moment like that too, because, we came out and we did some of the same sort of similar things, lower price structures and things. I've always been a numbers and a math guy. So like I was always a little bit higher than, I think my lowest visit was 45 and we were like average visit was like 50 in our office. I'm always been a very operationally like, let's look at the numbers, let's know the numbers, that kind of thing. But then understanding how that came about and like and then when I did raise my prices, it was the same sort of effect for me. And being able to communicate this amazing thing that we have in chiropractic to you know to my patients, that's when we really started seeing the really cool things happen in our life too. But honestly, I can say that that wouldn't have happened if had I not learned some of the communication styles and some of the, kind of how to toughen my skin up with, getting no's at a screening and how to, handle a phone call properly or things like that. And so I definitely can kind of resonate with that. And so Doc, you went into your coaching a little bit, but I want you to talk to me about red light and kind of where for you the synergy came into that for your practice.
Yeah, I'll share the story. So for 5 years in practice, my wife and I only did torque release technique, pure chiropractic, nothing else. And we were cool with that. Successful business, high volume, probably like a lot of docs listening. And we got to a point that really changed life for us. And that point was having children. We had this vision for a long time, even when we were dating, of what our lives would look like with kids and what our values are. And Probably for a lot of the listeners, they can relate to this. Homeschooling was a big thing, being able to raise our children the way we wanted to. And we also kind of thought that by 5 years into practice, we'd have a lot more free time to do that. And it just wasn't the truth at that point. So my perspective was I wanted to bring a new therapy into the clinic. It wasn't so much about adding revenue. Yes, every company, every business wants to add revenue, but I wanted to look into fully unattended therapies because I felt like that was the answer for extra revenue, but more free time as well. So I go and do a bunch of research. I look into red light therapy. I didn't know anything about it at the time. I heard some good things, but I started doing some research. I stumbled upon a few different companies and I went and purchased this $90,000 piece of equipment, which was like, that's a scary decision. I never spent
Yeah.
that much. And I started connecting with all the docs you and I know. Nobody was running effective red light therapy systems and procedures. Nothing that I would say, oh, I got to learn from this guy. A lot of docs didn't even know what it was. So I bring this in and I say, okay, we just spent all this money. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. So I created systems and procedures and we launched this unit. And when we initially launched it, we only launched it to our internal patients, the ones that we knew and had developed trust with through the years. And within our first month, our first 30 days, we generated $158,000 of revenue. And within the third day of our launch, we had to purchase another unit because we had exceeded capacity. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that was going to be the outcome, but that was God's plan and it was a huge blessing. And then after we were done with that 30-day process, we had to learn how to go and market this out to the community, to people we didn't know. So we developed systems for that as well. It changed my practice. It changed my life. I learned a lot along the way. What I learned is that, oh my gosh, like the demand for red light, I've marketed a lot of things, but the demand for red light far exceeds anything that I've ever experienced before, especially red light for weight loss, because that's a huge industry. So on average, we generate between 70,000 to 100,000 a month in red light. Most importantly, it's freed up our time. The guy who does a lot of our red light marketing, obviously is tracking our numbers as well, saw what we were doing and said, would you like to start a group where we coach other offices how to just replicate what you do?
Yeah.
So we launched something called Red Light Academy. We had a video crew come into my office, record my team doing all the systems and procedures. We put it onto a platform. And as of today, we have 36 clinics across the nation implementing the systems and procedures. And man, if I could share anything on it, I would say red light therapy is perfect for the doctor who's really in the position of needing to free up their time. You have the money. Yeah, extra money's cool, but you want to free up your time and do something that's congruent with the way many chiropractors see the body and see the healing process. Non-invasive, no downtime, no side effects. We're not covering symptoms, we're addressing the root cause of things. Yeah, man, it's been a wild ride. I have a very big passion about it. That's what I spend the vast majority of my time on now is Red Light Academy and coaching these offices to scale up and win back their free time.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so you've now gotten kind of the peek behind the window or behind the curtain, I guess I should say, of what's happening in chiropractors' practices in their lives. And we had this conversation last week, which is really what prompted us to get on this call and to do this podcast. And you text me after one of your calls and you said, dude, I cannot believe what I just figured out. And I want you to share what the biggest things that you think are keeping chiropractors, whether they're doing straight chiropractic or they're doing
Or a
shockwave
mix of things.
or
Yeah.
whatever they're doing, what are the biggest things that you see are keeping them from getting to the level of success that
It's
you
a
know
four-letter word. Team. 100% team. 100%. It's like, man, if your practice is not where you want it to be, look no further than your staff, than your team meeting room, and your employees, your team members. I mean, these offices join Red Light Academy and hire me to coach them through the process to help build this amazing system. And they onboard onto the platform, they consume the materials, then we get on coaching calls. And I'm like, wow, There's no possible way we could scale this with the way the team is functioning. Dude, you and I were blessed to know and be around the people that we were. We were taught the importance of team. We were taught the importance of communication, of using proper verbiage, our body language, nonverbal communication. We were taught just so much, not only taught it, but we actually did role plays of this stuff over and over. Like for us, team trainings is a given. Role plays are a given. Tough role plays too. And what I learned is as I started working with other offices one by one, either that's not the norm or maybe it no longer is the norm. So a lot of times, step one is just getting everybody back on the same team. These are not staff members. If you're calling them staff or employees, that already tells me a lot of where you're functioning at. It needs to be a team effort. They need to be part of the vision, the mission. And I would say a big way to remedy that, that a lot of these offices don't do. Let's do a weekly team meeting. Doesn't need to be this 3 or 4 hour thing. It could be a 1 hour thing. At bare minimum, let's go through our core values too. Do you have core values? Does your team know your office's core values? When we were kind of reshaping our office, especially when we brought the red light in, we sat down as a team. We created 4 new core values and we had our team give input on that. And then every single week after we decided them, we had everybody go through and tell us, all right, what are the 4 core values? It was a cool team bonding experience to do that, but I think it got everybody back on the same page. Aside from that, though, like the actual trainings where you're role playing through a phone call, a tour, a report of findings, those are critical. I was doing it today on a group coaching call. I put offices on the hot seat who had me convinced that they had everything down, and then all of a sudden you put somebody on the spot in front of 30 other clinics, which is a tough spot to be. And they're stumbling to find their words. We're way off of where we need to be. And that's not to be critical because we want to encourage them and nobody is perfect. It's a learning experience and we support one another. But, my wife used to always say this to my team members. She's like, when we train as if it's the real thing. When the tough situations happen in our clinic, Kendall, we know this. The team, like let's say they're doing an ROF with a medical doctor, and the medical doctor starts throwing out tough questions or being skeptical or rude, whatever. Toughest scenario you can think of. The team is not just gonna, out of nowhere, rise to this level that they've never performed at before.
Right.
But what will happen is that they're gonna sink to the level of their training. So let's train not on the easy stuff that happens every day, but let's train on the hard stuff too. And it's something that I hope if anybody listens to this and takes one thing away, it would be starting this week team meeting if you don't do it.
It's funny. It's funny that you say that because like when I was in practice, I had 12 training sessions that I would go through every quarter. Every single week,
There you go.
you knew week 1 was this, week 2 was this, week 3 was this, and we were just going to roll through those. And as soon as we got through them, we're going to roll through them again. And, I was actually talking with a coach, with a chiropractic coach about a week ago. And he said to me that one of the biggest things that he sees with chiropractors now is you can put a module in front of them. And even if it says to go role play, they don't do it. They're just watching. They want to be consumers. Whereas the difference between those who consume versus those that implement and take action is to me one of the biggest differentiating factors in that, I can remember back to when we were in chiropractic school and, me being it's Friday night. Most of the school is off at, Buckhead down at the bars. And I'm sitting in my apartment with 2 or 3 other guys that I hung out with, and we're role playing our day 1. We're role playing our day 2. We're role playing scripts. We're role playing how we're going to introduce ourselves at a networking event. And so when I came out, it was like, boom, this is how we're going to do it. And so that sort of mentality, I think, is something that chiropractors need to get back in the loop with. It doesn't matter whether you're first year in practice or 20 years in practice. Your team is going to change. And I promise you're going to find holes. And I see this all the time when, because we use, we use Go High Level or High Level for for our CRM with our clients here at Elevate. And one of the things that I see consistently is that we put ads out and people click and they schedule and they make phone calls, and docs will say my team's great on the phone, they're this, they're that, and I'll go in and I'll listen to some of the recordings in High Level, and then I'll be like, I'm gonna hit play and you tell me if this is a great phone call. And it's like you just see the color sink out of their face when I'm
I
like,
was just gonna say.
like it is not the marketing, it is the patient communication. It's the middle of funnel, the things that build trust for your practice to actually build value, so people will number one show up for their visits, but number two convert to any sort of care.
Dude, I am with you 100%. I mean, you just mentioned that some docs, they watch the module, they're supposed to role play, they don't. Maybe they're not used to it either. Maybe they're uncomfortable with it. I mean, it happened today on the coaching call that I had, putting some older docs on the spot, and we just role play through it, and you could see the physical level of discomfort there. But again, you and I were blessed to be given opportunities, right? You and I were flying, driving all across the country, working for successful docs who just said, "Hey, I've got a farmer's market down at the field. Here's the screening banner. Here's the tripod stand. Here's the insight scanner. Go out and do your thing. And if you book this many amount of appointments, good. Here's a bonus for it." We were given those opportunities, but you mentioned the phone calls with the marketing. One of the things that I am constantly reminded of is that even if you train on it, it's when we go too much time, even if I have my team down 100% on the phones, as time passes, it's like a game of telephone, no pun intended, right? The messaging begins to change a little bit. The inflections, they forget about the inflections, the tone to use. So we could train on April 1st on phones, and then for 2 months they have it down like the back of their hand and everybody's getting booked. But then all of a sudden by August 1st, it looks and sounds a lot different. So I feel like that's another credible piece of advice. It's like we can't just train on something one time, two times, or over a short period of time and expect them to have it down forever. Even the basics. I know the best offices train on their basics a
Yep.
lot.
And I think that this is a chiropractic principle, right? It's slipping and checking, right? It's slipping and checking. And I give this example all the time that my dad was our wrestling coach growing up, and he taught nothing but fundamentals to us when we were kids. Nothing but fundamentals. A single leg, a double leg, a sprawl, a half, a cradle, a chicken wing. Like it was, the very, very basics of wrestling. He never taught us the more advanced moves. He never taught us those things because even though kids could do those things in meets when we were kids, and they beat us because of they knew this, they do a front headlock. Like there were things that my dad would literally tell us, like, you are not allowed to do that. I don't even care if it's there. I have to tell you when you can use it in a match. And sometimes it's those basics that create champions. And we created more state champions and more conference winning teams than anyone in our area for a very, very, very long time because of those basics and those principles.
It's amazing how these little childhood experiences that we get from our parents, little things that we don't think about, how they affect our lives to such a huge degree down the road.
Yeah.
You also, a few minutes ago, you had asked me, what am I seeing with these offices? Team, again, would be the number one thing. The second thing I see, especially out of like the friend group that you and I have, who maybe are more established in practice and have seen more success, they are running so many different modalities. Their time is absolute zero, zilch. Their teams are exhausted. And even if you have 5, 6, 7, 8 team members, when you're running red light, decompression, chiropractic, soft wave, neuropathy, gut health. I mean, I don't even know if 7 or 8 team members is enough for that. I think I come from this perspective that a confused consumer doesn't buy. And when we're running all these modalities, we are super knowledgeable, right? We're doctors. We feel like we have the solution to the person's problem. And if I'm your patient, I'm coming in off of an ad that you ran for chiropractic. And as I'm sitting there and you're going through your interview, your consult process with me, you're extracting details about my health. And it's very easy for your light bulbs to start going off about all the different things that you can help me with. But I think it's so key that if that's what's occurring in people's offices, that we still have a clean, reproducible sales process that's not convoluted and doesn't confuse the consumer. Because if I'm coming to you for chiropractic, okay, I understand if you add chiropractic and decompression, you could probably close those two things in the same report of findings. But then if you're trying to do that, plus red light, plus soft wave, plus your gut health protocol, it's confusing me. And ultimately, like I just said, a confused consumer doesn't buy, it results in a no. And then you're in a position of like, wait a second, I just had all the answers to that person. I could have changed that person's life, and they just walked out the door. And it's something that I see a lot with the clinics that I'm working with. It's to just clean that up. It's to recognize that we need to meet people where they are at. If we are offering many different modalities, let's talk to them about the thing that they came in for. Then let's get them to commit for that. And then really it's simple as this. At the end of the visit, you could say, Kendall, I'm really excited to serve you. But today during the conversation, you had mentioned to me that you have issues with your knee. And that's something we specialize with here at this clinic. And we have many testimonials about people resolving their knee issues. With your permission, if it's okay with you, what I'd love to do is schedule you for a complimentary consultation so that we can evaluate your knee. Would that be okay with you? And you could use that verbiage across the board for all your different modalities. And last thing I'll throw on that is that we just need to remember that when patients are under care with us and they get results, they have a testimonial, they are much more likely to trust us and do these other services that we feel that they really need. So yeah, it's just something big I'm seeing. Docs throwing the whole smorgasbord at them and visit one, and it's just resulting in a no.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I've talked about this a number of times that there's a trust recession going on, right? And I think that COVID had partly to do with this, that even
Yeah.
though we were against the machine in many cases, we're still kind of lumped in as healthcare providers. And because we're lumped in as healthcare providers, there's been a loss in trust. And I think that's gone across the board in
Mhm.
just about everything. And this is where, for me, especially from the marketing perspective, like the thing that you just said, we've got a ton of testimonials. We've got this. Every practice has that. But it's the question of, have you actually taken the time to sit that patient down and ask them the questions and get those testimonials and get the
Mhm.
content? Because I can tell you, for me, the easiest practices for me to market are the ones that run ads with a healthy budget, and then they have testimonials. They've got a great website. They've got YouTube videos. They've got Instagram posts. They've got Facebook posts. And they're doing things that aren't geared towards the entertainment, right? The quick pop snap sort of things, but
Why trap rip your neck off?
it's content that is educational or helps to build trust. And there's nothing that people trust more than hearing from an actual patient in your office.
Dude, it's such a great reminder to me too, because we all feel that we have the answer, we have the solution. But quite frankly, every single business, regardless of what field you're in, you all feel that you have an answer, a solution, something that people's looking for, whether it's the best slice of pizza in the world, the best shoes, or the best chiropractic care. Without the marketing component of reaching people, it's just gonna struggle to succeed, man.
It's the truth. I've got two clients right now. Both of them are over $3 million a year, and both of them have at least 600 five-star Google reviews or more. And you don't get that level of Google reviews without asking. And they have oodles and oodles and oodles of testimonials and content all over online. And to me, it's like success leaves clues. And those people work really hard. I know that they do, because trying to get them on a phone call is usually 9 o'clock at night when I'm talking to them. But they are also putting in the work to do the things they need to do in order to grow. And to me, It comes down to really some of the things that you talked about, right? Not confusing people, how you communicate what it is that you do in building the value, and your marketing. Those three things are some of the most important aspects of just driving people in your doors. And that all comes back to like the things that you said, team training. How you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah, man. And you know what? Grass is greenest wherever we water it, right? So if you want more of those Google reviews, you have to ask for them. I remember one time, this is very early on in practice, maybe a year in. We ran like, you know how we did monthly themes in our offices?
Mm-hmm.
We had a month, I think it was October, where it was like we ran a theme called Let's Get Social, and it was about social media. And I was like, if you have a good testimonial and you post that testimonial online, we have a reward for that. I think it was like a candle from Michael's or something like that. But it was huge. We got over in 30 days, 50 to 100 Google reviews, all 5-star. And there's a lot of different and compliant ways to ask, but ultimately, if you do not ask, you cannot receive. And that even goes into sales, right? Like so many offices, they struggle with sales. They have case managers or CAs who are uncomfortable with sales. And man, I am passionate about that. I love sales. I love talking money. I didn't grow up in poverty, but for sure, my parents, unfortunately, and I don't think they did this knowingly, they taught me to have a lack mindset. And I say unfortunately because as I look back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, we absolutely did not grow up in lack. We had a beautiful home in a beautiful, safe area. I went to some of the best schools. They all had their own cars. Me and my brother had quads and stuff like that. So early on, I think that was a struggle for me, is going through things with a scarcity mindset. And when team members struggle with sales, I think that there's a lot of psychology to unpack there, but people get it. Like, check it out. For me, my parents never bought me anything. Going to Toys R Us and getting a toy, I mean, my mom would probably like smack me if I had asked for that growing up, okay? When my brother and I were about, I don't know, 10, 12, 13 years old, we got into dirt biking and quadding. And I really wanted this dirt bike. And my mom would bring us to the store. She'd show us the dirt bike, see the cost, $1,000, $2,000, and we're like, yeah, that's never gonna happen. So I went and did my own research online. I find this, it's called like a pit bike. It's a smaller version of a dirt bike. And it was $500. So for a whole summer, I just did any little job that I could to save up this $500. But that wasn't enough in my family. I could not go up to my father and mother and say, I have $500. I want to buy this dirt bike. I'm buying it. That is not how it worked. So I had to sit my father down after dinner. My brother wouldn't sit next to me and try and work this argument with me. Neither did my mom. So it's me and my dad. And I had to present to him where I was going to ride, what equipment I was going to buy for safety, why this bike is good, that I had the money. It was like an hour-long presentation to my dad at like 9 p.m. at night. I'm a 10-year-old. And I think back to those experiences, and those are the things that helped me become better at selling. And I'm not afraid to sell and to ask. It's like people are gonna tell us no. And we just have to accept that. And we need to realize that our patience, even if your plan is five, seven, $10,000, it's on the pricier side. They're either going to spend that with you or they're going to go spend it somewhere else.
Yep.
Even when they say that they've got X, Y, and Z going on, we're all adults. We all have things come up with our kids, with health expenses, with our cars, with our houses. So I just think that there's a place in chiropractic or in healthcare in general that we just need to get to where we are comfortable talking about money, talking about sales psychology, and not getting turned off by it.
100% agree with you. And I think that that is a major hurdle. And I think that one of the things that you said earlier is so important here, in that just because someone is doing better, or is in a different situation than you, doesn't mean that you still can't have those sort of conversations. Not caring, though, that be happy for that person and then strive to go after that yourself. And I think that that's super, super important, and I think it's impactful in today's day and age, to be able to be that really true and authentic version of yourself.
I love helping people. It's kind of like that concept of sending the elevator back down, right? Once you have something figured out, how can you give that back to somebody else? So, in transparency, when people reach out to me to onboard for Red Light Academy, not everybody has the funds to do that.
Yep.
Some of these docs are in a rough financial spot, and this is the way that they want to take their practice. And I can tell it's going to be an uphill battle for them, but I just resonate with it because I've been in that spot.
Yep.
And I'm not afraid to open up my life, my finances, and say, look, I was 2 years into practice, serving hundreds of people a week, but because I didn't understand finances and numbers and plans, there was a point one morning where I had to ask my mom for $20 cash just to put gas in my car to get to work because it wasn't available anywhere for me. It's a very humbling moment, man, but I'm not afraid to share it. A lot of docs won't share stuff like that because it's embarrassing to them, and it is embarrassing to me as well. But you can overcome that. And sometimes this is going to speak to somebody. Sometimes you just got to stay in the game, even when it's bad. Like, it's just a game. Practice, business is just a game. You cannot lose if you do not quit. Just stay in the game. You associate yourself with the right people that genuinely want to help you overcome and win.
I love that. And so, for those that want to reach out to you, for those that are looking for that elevator that's being sent back down, how do they reach out to you? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
If you're looking into Red Light Academy, whether you're not doing red light right now, or you have red light, but you want to generate it in a more scalable, profitable fashion, you could check us out on Facebook. Just type in Red Light Academy, or you could visit our website, redlight.academy.
And Doc, I'm going to wrap with this. This is a question that I ask to everybody. What is something that you're working on right now that you haven't quite figured out? Because we all know that there's things in everybody's life that they haven't quite figured out yet.
Easy, bro. Win the lottery. On a more serious note, for me, I have not figured out between my practice, my kiddos, my wife, and my red light company how to make the time to get back into the gym. And it is something that I desperately miss. And I speak to my wife about it like every single day of how badly I miss it. And I know I need it. I do prioritize self-care, but the working out component is the one that's been pushed to the back burner. I think it's just important to, at bare minimum, burn that steam, you know?
Thank you so much for being on here today. And for those of you guys out there listening, thank you for sticking around. And if you have questions, definitely reach out to Dr. Jason or myself. We're always here to help. Have a good one, guys.
Appreciate you, brother. God bless.
If you enjoyed this episode of Table Talk, a chiropractic podcast, make sure that you subscribe and check out the links below to our free Facebook group with chiropractic marketing secrets, our free resource guides, and the links to all of the guests that we have here on the show and ways to be able to connect with them. Thanks and God bless.